Okay, I think it's recording. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. So, more than once I've been in a situation where either a client, a family member, or a friend has asked me, hey, if I was going to meet a girl for the first time and we were going to have a conversation, or it was the second time and we were going to have a conversation around marriage, what should I ask? Like, let's be honest, as men, especially if you've been wanting marriage for so long and you go meet a girl, you can tend to get a little bit excited, and in that excitement you might be trying to show your best version, you might be trying to compliment her and win her over, etc. And in all of this you might forget that this is going to be the person that you are with for the next 20, 30, 40, 50, Allahu Alam, right, years. So it's important for us to have some kind of understanding what we want to get an understanding of from this meeting. So I'm gonna just literally just scribble this down on paper. So before I tell you what this is, where am I coming to this conclusion from? First and foremost, for my own marriage, things that I feel, alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided me at the right time to ask the right questions before I got into marriage, which helped me get into a partnership with someone who is more aligned with the type of life that I was hoping to create, which wasn't too far from my values, because everyone's going to have a difference in values. You grow up in different families, sometimes even different countries. So it's normal that you're going to have differences, but when those differences are larger, the amount of work that needs to be done to come closer and to find alignment in the life you want to build is higher. So that's one area. My personal experience of 6 years, I think 6 years of marriage at this point in time, getting married and then starting out my life living with my in-laws, to then actually moving to a foreign country and then being in a foreign country all by ourselves, figuring things out, and also now entering parenthood in a foreign country by ourselves. So that's one area that I'm drawing my experience from. And then the second block, of course, is my area of work. At this point, alhamdulillah, 10, 11 years of working in personal development. Allah has given me a chance to work with people from multiple backgrounds, and in that I have people who kind of married a rich, like super rich wife, and then from an average or lower than average family man, and the type of dynamics they've had and the issues. The vice versa of that, sometimes the wife is like extremely beautiful and the man is not all that handsome. Like, how does that dynamic work? Someone is very strong in their deen and then someone isn't. Someone has a very low expectation of like what lifestyle looks like, and then the other has one that's high as Burj Khalifa. But all these different dynamics that I've had the blessing to work with and seen what has worked, what hasn't worked, what are exceptions, etc. And then, of course, the last pillar, which is, the education, the reading, the development, etc., that comes from the qualifications and whatnot that I pursued in order to be able to help the people that I work with. So this is kind of where I'm drawing all of that, naturally, all of this within the framework of the Deen, which is important for us as Muslims. So let's get the first one out of the way, because this is super easy. So when you meet the person, the first thing that you can quickly get out of the way is actually Deen, like the basics. Do you pray? Do you fast? Do you give your zakat, your sadaqah, etc.? So the reason I'm saying this is easy to get through is because, let's be honest, you can't truly assess the quality of someone's prayer or how much of a priority it is for them just by asking them. Anyone can say, yeah, of course I pray, and anyone can say, of course I fast. So one additional layer that you can go there is, if you have friends, family, you can ask around. It's perfectly fine. This is someone you're going to marry. You can ask around to get an understanding of, is this person someone who truly makes sure that their salah is prayed? If it's not exactly on time, but at least within the time frame. Are they that type of a person? Are they someone who's known to fast, and are they generally somebody who follows at least the basics of Islam? Now, what level does their ihsan, like to what extent do they go above and beyond? This is very difficult to assess upon an initial meet. So I'm going to keep that one quick. The first one is the Deen. The second one, what is her understanding of gender roles? We live in a time where the notion of who a man should be and who a woman should be is super confusing for those who have not taken the time to actually go deep and understand the simple question of what does Allah expect from each of these roles. That's one of the simplest ways you can understand what is the right way for you to go about the idea of gender roles when it comes to marriage. But that being said, there are some nuances as well. It's very difficult to think about 1400 years ago, the expectations, lifestyle, and the role that a wife would have played versus today. right, versus today. So there has to be some nuance there, but the basics, and you should have an understanding of what you would expect from the role of a wife. Because if you marry that person simply because you've been waiting for marriage for so long, or you're looking to have your urges channeled in a halal way, or if you're just so excited about the notion of marriage, or attracted, or you're quote unquote in love with someone, which is purely emotional, not rational, you can very quickly fall into trouble, because you might jump into it and later on find out that that person has a very strong notion which doesn't align with what you're expecting from your future wife. So be very clear with this. Obviously, you don't want to be weird and you don't want to make it sound like an interrogation. Use your emotional intelligence, set the stage, use the right tone, language, etc. But try to get an understanding of what her understanding is in terms of the role she will play in this partnership. And very importantly, a lot of us miss this as men. What is her expectation of you as the man in this relationship? That is super important too, because you might be having a notion based on how your dad was, or you've seen how your dad is and you want to be the opposite of that, or there's someone you look up to, or maybe you've never even thought about that. And what if everything you are hoping to be, or the person you're going to be, is everything she doesn't want? Again, you're setting yourself up for a lot of disagreement, a lot of arguments, a lot of trouble that, if you don't have the right skill set to work through and solve, can end up again in divorce. Okay. The third one, in this day and age, her career or business aspirations. This is super important. A lot of young, sisters today, they are ambitious, and alhamdulillah, there's nothing wrong in them being ambitious. But you need to understand to what extent is that ambition a priority for them with their career or their business. Like when you have kids, is it going to be that, okay, I do not want to give up this business, or is it going to be, I won't give up the business, but I'm okay to downsize, or is it, all of that is secondary. Number one is going to be being the caregiver at home, right? What is her understanding? Because we can talk for days and days about Islamically what you should do or should not do, but at the end of the day, you can't go into marriage hoping to change the person. Never do that. Never marry for potential. Always marry for who is in front of you, because the rest you cannot guarantee. So if they have a very strong notion that no, I want to be a career woman, then you need to ask yourself, am I okay with that? Right? And you need to figure out the balance that you're going to play in all of that. My mother was someone who went to work, right, throughout her entire life. And it was a necessity at the time for us in order to make ends meet. Okay, but at the same time, my personal preference is I want my wife to be somebody who will primarily play the role of being the mother to my children, right? Of course, also being my wife, like that's super important too. But apart from that, and alhamdulillah, we align on that. So we see eye to eye on that, and that makes things so much easier. It makes things so much easier. So get an understanding of that. How ambitious is she? How much does it mean to her to have a career and a business? And when kids come, how does that dynamic change? Okay. Now remember that this is also taking into account the fact that if you're going to be the sole breadwinner, then you need to move to the next category, which I think is super important to discuss, is the current lifestyle that she has been brought up with and the aspirational lifestyle that she has. Why? Because once you become the sole provider and the breadwinner, if you are unable to meet at least the minimum expectation of what she may have in terms of the lifestyle that she lives, while it is workable and while the noble thing would be for her to adjust, it is something that can become an added stress in the life that you live. Remember, I told you guys that I've worked with some clients who come from very different financial backgrounds. And what inevitably happens is that the girl starts to subconsciously take a look at how her father has treated her, the lifestyle that her father has given, the ease that her lifestyle has given, and unconsciously project that onto her husband. So when she's used to living a certain lifestyle and you're giving like 5% or 10% of that lifestyle, maybe you're doing it in a halal way, you're doing your best and you're providing it. There are situations where a person can look beyond everything and look at your character, look at your conduct, and value you for who you are and value you for the journey that you are on Jannah, and still turn a blind eye to it. But I'm just being realistic here, and I'm speaking as human beings who are full of flaws and mistakes, and we have emotions and feelings and unconscious expectations, and telling you just get a feel for what her expectation of lifestyle is. What are the places she usually goes to? What type of gifts do her family members buy her, etc. Because it can give you an idea of, is that something you can cater to? And then if it's not, that's a conversation you can have before you get into marriage. Because after you get into it, again, like I said, don't marry for potential, marry for what is in front of you. Okay, the last one the fifth point on my scribbled note at the back of my to-do list, alhamdulillah, is family dynamics. What do I mean by family dynamics? The way that they are used to seeing a family run. The way that they're used to seeing a family run. I was working with a young couple where the wife would give very critical feedback to the husband, super critical feedback. And this boy was brought up in an environment where his mum, his dad, all of them were very soft on the inside. They were very soft on the inside. They would pay a lot of attention to the vocabulary that they would utilize, the time, the space that they would deliver a nasiha, an advice, in order to make sure that the person wasn't hurt. Now imagine that person comes from that background, and he goes and marries into a family where they're so used to being very brutal and very kind of to the point with the way that they deliver advice. Now, delivering the feedback or being open about things is okay, but having empathy is very important as well. And because they lack that dynamic, often he would get hurt time and time and time and time again, all the way up until the point where he actually broke down and he no longer even feels comfortable being around that family. And worse, even in the absence of the extended family, even the wife practiced this same kind of thing where she would give very hard feedback. And unfortunately, they were also comfortable with giving this feedback even in front of friends sometimes and other people who are from extended family, which doesn't really land well with someone who's used to advice being given privately and given softly and given with a lot of consideration, right? So, okay, these are just 5 things because the truth is yesterday someone called me and asked me this, and then I thought, okay, there's been more than one occasion that people have asked this. There might be more of you out there who might be wondering, okay, if I'm a guy who's going to meet a girl and of course within the halal framework and all of that, and I want to focus, keep my attention and not get distracted with how beautiful she is or how exciting marriage is going to be, right? But rather focus on some of the important things. And those are going to be the 5 things that I'll tell you. The number 1 is the Deen, again, the basics, her understanding of gender roles, both the man and the woman, what her understanding is, her career and business aspirations, the current lifestyle that she is living or she would expect in the future, and then family dynamics. Now, all of this said, I want you guys to remember something. When you walk into this conversation, you're a human being sitting across the table or whatever the space of another human being. Don't go with like a paper like this and a checklist kind of thing. You will scare her. She'll be very worried, right? Remember that Allah has made women in such a manner that they love to be seen and men in such a manner that they love to look, which is why, we're supposed to lower our gaze and whatnot. So one of the things that I have found really helps in these meetings is that create a space, an environment where as much as possible she feels comfortable to express herself. And that's up to you as a man to lead the conversation and build the trust and guide her throughout that conversation. So remember, it's a human being. Don't prepare a speech. Don't go with anything. You can have a few points, maybe jotted on your phone or whatever, and you can be honest about it. You can say, I don't want to get caught up in the moment because, there's a lot of feelings and emotions that tend to come up. But I just want to make sure that, we prioritize the best interests of this conversation so that inshallah you and I can have a happy married life should we wish to go ahead with it. All right, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys found that useful, and if you have a friend or a family member who is trying to get married and wants to know what he should ask her at a meeting, hope this video helps. I make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy. We live in a time where marriage has become really difficult, and maybe we can talk about why on a different video. But alhamdulillah, all the tools that we need, they're within the Quran, they're within the Sunnah, they're within the Hadith. So we need to make the effort to go out there and look for it. Jazakumullah khair for your time. I pray that Allah makes it easy for everyone. May Allah grant you all a blessed married life. May Allah make it easy for us to find spouses who are the coolness of our lives. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.